Boney M is a world-famous music group that became a symbol of the disco era in the late 70s and early 80s. They gave the world several hits that are still played on dance floors and radio stations. Their music combined elements of disco, pop, and soul, and is considered one of the most influential and iconic in its genre. Formation of the group. Boney M was formed in 1976 by German producer Frank Farian, who became their main producer and the author of most of their hits. The group was assembled to perform disco music, and their first performances were on studio recordings. The group's lineup changed several times, but ultimately it stabilized with Mary Ann Liberty, vocals, Bobby Farrell, vocals and dance, Liz Mitchell, vocals, and Martin Simon, vocals. The group was named after Boney M, a legendary figure from African mythology, symbolizing the fight for freedom and independence. Initially, Boney M was purely a studio project, but their success quickly drew attention, and they began performing live around the world. Rise to fame. The turning point in Boney M's career came with the release of their debut album, Take the Heat Off Me, in 1976. On this album, the song Baby Do You Wanna Bump gained attention. However, the real success came with their subsequent works. The song Rivers of Babylon, 1978, became a hit not only in Europe but also in the USA, where it charted and eventually became one of the group's most famous songs. Inspired by biblical texts, this track featured a catchy rhythm and memorable choral vocals. Another major achievement was the release of the album Night Flight to Venus, 1978, which included hits like Rivers of Babylon, Daddy Cool, and Ma Baker. These songs became Boney M's signature tracks and cemented their status as icons of the 70s. Musical style and influence. Boney M's music blended disco, soul, reggae, and pop, making it unique and accessible. The group was known for its strong choral arrangements, danceable rhythms, and powerful melodies. Their style was largely oriented towards club music and dance parties, which made them incredibly popular among the youth of the time. In addition, Boney M incorporated elements of African and Caribbean music, giving their tracks an exotic and distinctive sound. Their style and image became an integral part of the musical culture of the 70s. Legendary hits. Some of Boney M's most famous songs include Daddy Cool, one of their first big hits that became an anthem of the disco era, Rivers of Babylon, a song based on biblical verses that became extremely popular in Europe and the USA, Ma Baker, an energetic and unforgettable track that also became part of their repertoire. Brown Girl in the Ring, a song with elements of Caribbean folklore and an infectious rhythm. Scandals and issues. Bobby Farrell's departure and controversy. In 1979, Bobby Farrell, the group's charismatic frontman and dancer, was controversially dismissed from the group due to internal conflicts with Frank Farian. Farrell was the public face of Boney M and often received the most attention from fans and the media. His departure created a scandal, and many fans were disappointed. Lip-syncing scandal. One of the biggest controversies surrounding Boney M was the accusation of lip-syncing during live performances. It was revealed that Frank Farian had used studio vocals for their recordings, and at live concerts, the members of the group sometimes didn't sing live. This led to backlash and criticism, especially when fans realized that the powerful vocals they heard on records were not necessarily coming from the people on stage. Frank Farian's role in the group. Another issue was the controversial role of Frank Farian in the group. While Farian was credited as the producer and songwriter, it was later revealed that he had a significant influence over the group's creative direction and performance. Farian essentially controlled the group's image and music, even hiring session musicians to perform the actual vocals and instruments in the studio. This revelation led to allegations of exploitation, with some arguing that the true talent of the group members was often overshadowed by Farian's manipulation. Internal conflicts and departures. In addition to Farrell's exit, Boney M experienced other internal conflicts. Liz Mitchell, one of the original members, was often at odds with the management and the way the group was handled. Over time, several members left, and by the early 1980s, the group was no longer the powerhouse it had once been. The decline of popularity. As disco started to fade in popularity in the early 1980s, Boney M struggled to adapt to changing musical trends. Their popularity waned, and they were overtaken by new musical movements like synth pop and new wave. This decline, combined with the mounting internal struggles, led to a gradual breakup of the group, with members pursuing solo careers and Frank Farian moving on to other projects. Legacy and influence. Despite the controversies, Boney M left an indelible mark on music history. Their songs continue to play on radio stations and in clubs, and their influence on the development of dance music cannot be overstated. The group is considered one of the icons of the disco era and remains a cult figure in the music scene. Boney M were not only successful musicians, but also cultural icons of the 70s who set fashion trends, and their music continues to inspire new generations of listeners and artists. The group's influence is evident even in contemporary remixes and adaptations of their songs, which are still played on dance floors worldwide.